Hello everyone, it's Jeff and I'm trying the vinyl video thing again. I had made a few videos a couple months ago, more or less as practice, and I didn't really like the way they turned out. So I'm going to try to fix some of the problems that I saw by speaking a little bit clearer and hopefully a little bit faster, and get more to the point of what I have to show for that particular video. Today, the theme or topic is estate sales. Every week or two, I go on estatesales.net and I look for estate sales that are in my area, local, hopefully trying to find pictures of records or listings for records. And I found a couple in the past month, and I actually did find a couple of good records and a couple of interesting stories. So I'll get right to it. The first one that I went to was a all record estate sale. There was nothing else. It was just a garage full of old record store stock that this guy was getting rid of, which was right up my alley. But the bad part is I couldn't get to the sale until the second day. It was a 3-day sale. I had to miss the first day because of work. So my philosophy with estate sales or flea markets or anything is, if I'm meant to have a certain record, then I'm gonna find it. I don't cry or whine over stuff that I missed. So with that kind of attitude, I found one or two records at this sale. Primarily, this is about the best of the bunch. Joe Jackson's Body and Soul. This is an album that I've seen in half-price books. I've seen it at flea markets, and for whatever reason, the cover was ripped up or the record was beat up. And this one was perfectly fine, and for $2 I grabbed it. Didn't really have a lot of success at that sale. It was mostly 70s disco, a lot of just stuff that I'm just not interested in. I have nothing against disco, but I just didn't find anything that I was interested in. I went to another estate sale with my wife, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that when we walked in, there were 2 boxes full of records there. And I'm starting to flip through them, and I was pleasantly surprised and ended up making several purchases. The first of which is a double album by 10 Years After called Recorded Live. I've always been a fan of 10 Years After. I have a couple of their other albums. I've never listened to this one before, but again, just like with the Joe Jackson, I've seen this in the bins at half price, among other places, and for the cheap price that this was, which I think was $3, I just grabbed it. The records were in very nice shape. Cover's kind of beat up, but I don't really care about that as much as I do about the record. So I found that one. I also found a ZZ Top album, Tres Hombres. Waiting for the Buses on this one. Jesus Just Left Chicago was on this one. LaGrange is on this one. Again, this was something that I wasn't even looking for, but I came across it and I was pleasantly surprised at the condition of the record, so I grabbed this one too. Another one that was another pleasant surprise, Crime of the Century by Supertramp. Again, none of these records are particularly rare. They're all fairly common. I just don't happen to have them in my collection. I know plenty of songs off this album. I know it sounds great. And again, the record was in very good shape. These all needed cleaning, but I'm very certain that they'll sound good on the turntable because they look to be fairly new condition. That was it for that sale. I also found, what else did I find at that one? Oh, a Wings album, Venus and Mars, which I just played, I think, yesterday, and I posted on Facebook. And I found something else, but I can't remember what it is right now. But anyway, that was a pretty good estate sale all in all. I think I spent a grand total of $15. So I was pretty happy with the way that turned out. The last estate sale that I went to recently, actually the last one that I've been to out of these, was another one that was primarily records and racing stuff. A lot of racing jackets, shirts, t-shirts, other memorabilia. And it was in Aurora, which is a little far for me to drive to a fairly unknown quantity of estate sale because I live in Oak Lawn, so it took me about an hour to get out there. And I went, and sure enough, there was a big crowd there. I ended up being 34th on the list, and they were only letting in 10 people at a time. But while I was waiting, I got there about 45 minutes early, and I was still 34th. And a bunch more people showed up after me. I started talking to some of the other guys that were there waiting, talking about records, and I found out that the people who were number one on the list showed up at 10:30 the previous night and slept over in their car in the driveway to be first on this list. The person who was number two showed up about 2:30 in the morning. I don't have time for that. I'm a family guy. I've got too much work that takes up too much of my time, and obviously I can't do that, but needless to say, those guys got the lion's share of records because box after box after box of good stuff. I was able to get a peek at some of it, and I was just like, wow. So I waited and I waited and I waited, and they finally let me in because I'd thought about leaving, but I didn't want to waste all the time that I put in already, and I knew it was another hour drive home. So I figured, once again, whatever I'm meant to find, I'll find. And I did find two albums. One, which again isn't common, but sometimes the most common records are the hardest ones to find, at least for me. I could do another whole video on albums that I thought would be a lot easier to find than they did. But in any case, I finally get into this estate sale, and I start flipping through the boxes, and I come across a mint condition original pressing of the first Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album. I'm not a huge fan of Tom Petty. I mean, that's mostly due to overexposure on the radio. But this album has probably, for me, my favorite songs by him, primarily Breakdown, American Girl, Strangers in the Night. These are things that haven't been ground out of me at my desire to want to hear them through repetition. So this is original Shelter Records pressing, mint condition. This one was about $15, but by this point I was just wanting to come away with something. I didn't want to walk out of there empty-handed, so even though it was a little more expensive than what I would usually pay, I grabbed this. There were a couple other Petty albums for the same price, but this was really the main one that I was interested in. So I was pretty happy to get that. And the other album that I found is kind of an oddball one. It's I posted these. I put these on a picture on Facebook the day of that sale. But I'll show it to you anyway because it's by a band called Sniffin' the Tears. The name of this album is called Fickle Heart, and their one hit that they had is a song called Driver's Seat, which is really a great song. And again, this was a mint condition record for $2. So I figured, what the hell, I'll just pull it, give it a shot. I at least know that there's one song on here that's good that I like. I haven't listened to this all the way through yet, but there could very well be a reason why they were a one-hit wonder, but I'll give them a chance. They could be great. And for the price, I figured I had nothing to lose. So I ended up walking out of that estate sale with those two records, and I was perfectly happy with it. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you hit big, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. That's just the way of it. Okay, closing in on 11 minutes here. I'm going to wrap this one up. Just before I made this video, the mail arrived and I got two records that I just pulled out of the package, which I'll show you. The first one, again, isn't a particularly rare album. It's pretty common, and it's by a pretty, not common artist, but it's Don Henley, Building the Perfect Beast. I don't hate Don Henley the way I hate a lot of Eagles tracks, and it's the same thing as with Tom Petty. It's just through sheer repetition on the radio over the 25, 30 years that they've been playing it. But solo Don Henley doesn't bother me that much, and there's plenty of hit songs on this album to make it worth having on vinyl. I think I have this on CD. Either I have it or my wife has it on CD, but I just wanted to have this on vinyl too, because that seems to be the way I'm listening to music lately. The other album fills a big hole in my collection of Stevie Ray Vaughan albums, and it's In Step. This one just arrived today. This is also mint condition. I'm not going to tell you what this one cost because it was fairly pricey. It's an original pressing. I think there are reissues of these albums out now, but I grabbed this one. It's an original Epic Records pressing. The only record of his that I'm missing on vinyl is The Sky Is Crying Now. So I've got all of his other studio albums that he released while he was alive, and of course Sky Is Crying was released posthumously the year after he died in that helicopter crash, which I think the anniversary for that is in a couple days. I think it's August 27th. Today's the 25th, so Sunday will be the anniversary of the helicopter crash that took Stevie Ray Vaughan's life, unfortunately. But I'm a big fan of his. I mean, I could listen to him every day and never get tired of it. So I bought this album on CD when it came out, and I think I still have these CDs somewhere. But I want it on vinyl too. And I'm sure someday I'll come across The Sky Is Crying on vinyl for hopefully less than a king's ransom. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and hopefully I'll start doing these a little bit more regularly, maybe have more of a theme topic to them. I have a whole crate full of records that I've bought since I quit making videos to show you, and I've got plenty of themes and stories I think to go with them, so we'll see how it goes, and with any luck I'll be seeing you again soon. So take care, everyone. It's your pal Jeff. Peace.